What I just said in English is that one of the other alarming trends is that we have seen handgun violence specifically go up by significant percentages, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important that we put into place the national handgun freeze. This is advice that we've received not only from law enforcement, which would be a step in the right direction, but equally those survivors and those victims and those women's groups we've engaged with robustly and will continue to engage with robustly as we move forward with a comprehensive strategy. We can't tolerate the status quo. As I said, we've seen additional loss of innocent life in Montreal. 3 more people lost to gun violence in the last few days. We continue to see shootings here in my hometown, in Toronto, and right across the country. The status quo is unacceptable. We must act with what Martin Luther King once called the fierce urgency of now. And that's why when we introduced Bill C-21, we also brought forward regulations that bring the provisions of the National Handgun Freeze into effect within 30 sitting days of Parliament. But we didn't stop there. In mid-June, my colleague MP Tlaib Nur Mohammed, who sits on the Standing Committee for Public Safety, moved a motion that would see that National Handgun Freeze implemented immediately. It was a common sense measure, it was a good motion, and was supported by our colleagues in the NDP as well as the Bloc Québécois, which demonstrated its broad bipartisan appeal. But rather than work with us to save lives, what did the Conservatives do? They blocked that motion. They had an opportunity to build bridges with us, and instead they built barriers. We've been clear from the beginning that we will use every single tool at our disposal to protect Canadians and to stop gun violence. We are not going to let the Conservatives, obstructionism, stand in the way of better protecting our communities and saving lives. And as a government, we are going to act. And that brings me to why we are here today. I'm proud to announce that our government has decided to ban the importation of handguns. Through a regulatory mechanism enacted by my colleague, Minister Joly, nearly all individuals and businesses in Canada will be banned from importing handguns on a go forward. Given that nearly all our handguns are imported, this means that we're bringing our national handgun freeze into effect even sooner. Now, the measures will take effect on August 19, as I understand it, and Minister Joly will have more to say. Put simply, from that moment forward, the number of handguns in Canada will only go down. Our hope is that this temporary measure, one that is made moot should and when Parliament passes Bill C-21, along with the amendments to the regulations under the Firearms Act, as they hope they will. But in the meantime, this announcement is further proof of our commitment to leave no stone unturned in our quest to prevent gun crime in our country. We'll keep finding new tools to keep Canadians safe.
As Canada's Foreign Minister, I have the authority to deny any export or import permit application that is contrary to Canada's security. When making these decisions, I always keep Canadian interests, safety, and security top of mind. This is a role that I'm very proud to fulfill and a responsibility that I really don't take lightly. So, Marco referred earlier about the introduction of Bill C-21, which is a strong plan to tackle gun violence. And today, we are announcing an import ban on handguns. This measure aligns with the handgun freeze proposed in Bill C-21 and includes the same exceptions as Bill C-21. In effect, this ban is a stopgap, while the handgun freeze is in its entirety moves through the parliamentary process, preventing shelves from being restocked in the immediate term. So what we saw when the Prime Minister and Marco announced a handgun freeze is that there was an uptick in gun being purchased in the country. We want to prevent that. That is why we're announcing this import ban. As mentioned by Marco, we know that the vast majority of handguns in the countries are imported, as there's no handgun producer in the country. So we know that no one is immune to gun violence, and we must work together if we're going to tackle it. The ban will come into effect in 2 weeks on August 19 and will remain into effect until Bill C-21 comes into force. And that means that when needed, in times like these, we must be prepared to bolster the current measures that protect Canadians so that they remain solid, seamless, and consistent. The import ban that we're announcing today, coupled with Canada's already very strict import controls, will keep handguns off of Canada's streets and out of our schoolyards.